Outdated wedding trends that should stop. Modern wedding trends are getting out of hand. These are the most ridiculous ones we've ever seen. Interactive food stations. Guests love them, and they're easy, but the problem is that it will slow down your wedding. People will get stuck choosing and making their food. A 2-hour service may turn into 3 or 4 hours for larger weddings. Photo booths. Photo booths had their moment, but everyone and their mom are using this theme now. The biggest issue with photo booths is that you have tons and tons of pictures that all look the same with different faces. Mixed fonts. No matter what you're doing, you shouldn't have more than 2 fonts at your wedding. In fact, many wedding planners and brides prefer the simplicity of 1 font. 3 or more fonts can look tacky and mismatched. Chalkboards. Chalkboard signs are okay in moderation, but to have 1 each for the program, drink specials, table numbers, bathroom locations, etc., is just too much. Chalkboard signs can also cost more if you pay someone to write beautifully. Royal wedding copies. The royals love to have extravagant weddings. Enjoy it from afar, but don't spend an insane sum to copy what you saw on television. It's alright to take inspiration and a few elements from the affair, but you don't want your wedding to feel like an imitation of the most famous weddings in the world. Twinkle lights. If you hang too many twinkle lights around your ceremony or reception, you run the risk of making it look like a Christmas light showing or a college girl's dorm room. If you don't intend on having a Christmas-themed wedding or you aren't getting married in a dorm room, think twice before you choose to use twinkle lights. Too many cocktails. 1 or 2 unique cocktails that represent the bride and groom's favorite flavors will suffice. Too many beverages are great for guests, but it will quickly slow down the service and overwhelm the bar. Novelty cake toppers. Novelty cake toppers are funny once or twice, but buying one to put on a wedding cake is another thing. Referring to your new marriage as a ball and chain isn't the best way to start the union. Wedding favors. Wedding favors are ridiculous. Guests will ultimately lose them, break them open, or just forget them at their table. The worst type of favor is the non-edible kind because they're required to carry it around with them until they leave. Complex seating charts. Complex seating charts are the worst. Simple is best, but most of what you see on Pinterest can turn into a complicated mess. Large weddings suffer from this the most as each person attempts to navigate to the table and the reception. Sign apocalypse. Signs are necessary at weddings to let the guests know information without saying it a million times. However, that doesn't mean you need a sign just to have a sign. Try to keep signs to a minimum. Confetti and rice toss. Rice is terrible for tossing. The whole birds exploding thing is a myth, but what's true is that it's impossible to clean and a waste of food. Confetti isn't any easier to clean unless you get an eco-friendly paper. Donuts instead of cake. If you don't want the traditional wedding cake, expand your options beyond donuts. There are 1,000 different pastry options out there, so instead, have an assortment of options. Flower crowns. Flower crowns were once an amazing addition to weddings, but every bride who wants a rustic or boho theme wears them. To make matters worse, many people can't pull it off. They end up wilting and looking sad if they manage to stay in place. Wooden pallets. Wooden pallets are too common, in general. Pinterest seems to love wooden pallets for every DIY from home decor to wedding ceremonies. Not only do you not know the history of the rescued pallets, but many are loaded with formaldehyde and can have bugs. Fondant. Fondant isn't new, but Pinterest has encouraged brides to seek out smooth, picturesque cakes. While it may look good, it tastes horrible. Most confectionaires will tell you that fondant is gross, and good old buttercream is where it's at. Champagne towers. Champagne towers may look great in photos, but they're a problem in waiting. One little bump and everything can come crashing down. Then, you'd spend most of your wedding facilitating a cleanup rather than enjoying the day. Weird food combinations. We get wanting to satisfy everyone, but it isn't going to happen. When your guest gets ready to eat, the last thing they want to eat is something weird like salmon and mac and cheese. It may leave your guests wanting classic pairings that leave them satisfied. Blankets as seats. Never use blankets as seats at your wedding. Even if your guests aren't wearing dresses, people don't generally like to sit on the ground. If you must have a boho chic wedding, use regular seats with seat covers. All the balloons. Tons of balloons at weddings have to stop. Seriously. Balloons are for birthday parties and events for children. They're not tasteful at all. The worst part is cleaning up after the deflated rubber at the end of the night. Plus, the inflated ones are in the way of everything. Ruining the dress for the sake of pictures. While this may sound surprising, it's a trend to take wedding pictures standing in a creek or ocean or even jumping into a pool towards the end of the reception. This not only completely ruins your beautiful dress that you could pass down to future generations or resell to another lovely bride, but it could also be dangerous if you decide to jump into the deep end with a large gown and get caught. Burlap everything. Wedding ideas are always abuzz with burlap. Why this coarse, brown fabric seems so popular, no one knows, but it's overdone to death. Burlap is not a fashion statement, it should be an accent piece. Black cakes. Whether fondant or frosting, black wedding cakes are a mess. They can stain everything they touch, including your guests. When it's time for pictures, your guests will have teeth that look like they're about to fall out of their heads. Pinterest DIY. Pinterest DIY rarely goes well. Even if it looks easy, there are a million different ways that it can go wrong. After all is said and done, you may end up spending more money on the DIY version. Barn weddings. Barn weddings can have a purpose if you grew up or live on a farm. However, if neither side of the family has anything to do with a farm or barns, why have one in a barn? Something about it feels wrong. Too many city dwellers are getting hitched in barns, and it feels artificial. Rose gold everything. Rose gold is beautiful, and it's super elegant, but it's so overdone right now. Going all in with rose gold also makes your wedding look dated years later. If you opt for touches of rose gold, it'll make the color pop and seem less overwhelming. Dance entrances. Dance entrances have been used for quite a while, and that's too long. While you want the ceremony to be memorable and fantastic, but at the end of the day, the wedding is for the bride and groom. Plus, guests are getting tired of seeing someone dance toward the altar. Strange non-traditional cake flavors. We're all for flavors that are different, but not everyone likes matcha. It's the bride and groom's day, but there's no point paying a ton of money for a non-traditional cake flavor if hardly anyone is going to eat it. Mason jars. Mason jars can still be used for great things around the house, but the phase should disappear in weddings. Drinking out of them was never appealing because spilling is pretty common. Not to mention, no one wants a mason jar as a wedding favor. Candy buffets. Candy buffets are delicious, in the beginning. Nothing is worse than cleaning it up at the end of the day, trust us. Everything gets sticky and clumped together. Everyone also gets clumped up around the candy buffet, which can slow down the process of your wedding. Casual shoes. We're not against being comfortable, but tennis shoes and cowboy boots during a wedding? That's just too much. If heels are too much, you can get a classy pair of flats that don't kill your feet. Cliché first dance song. If we go to one more wedding where their first dance is set to another Ed Sheeran song, All of Me, by John Legend, or some other song that literally everyone dances to at their wedding, we will simply walk out. It doesn't really say much about you personally as a couple to have these songs as your song. Themed weddings of any kind. Weddings should be elegant, beautiful, and help to represent who you and your new spouse are as people and as a couple. We're sorry, but if you have a themed wedding, that's just not okay. Grossed out kissing pictures. Why has this ever been a trend? It's for some reason popular for a bride and groom to either want to take this picture or their photographer to suggest taking this picture, and it just doesn't make sense. Having your dog in the wedding. For every one of these weddings that goes right, there are 50 others that go really wrong. The dog doesn't understand what is going on, so they could easily go potty right in the middle of the ceremony, knock down decorations, or simply not follow directions at all. Bridesmaid proposals. These can be ridiculously elaborate. Some are simple little cards that say, "Will you be my bridesmaid?" But others are elaborate gift boxes, expensive trips, or an entire devised plan. This is just too much. Succulents. Having succulents in your wedding flowers, or even as your wedding flowers, will date your wedding and won't make it look like the timeless event it should be. Also, why would you give them as wedding favors? Wedding hashtags. Wedding hashtags were a great idea when social media was new, but now there are just too many of the same hashtags being used, or you have to choose something really obscure so that no other wedding is using your same hashtag. It's outdated and no longer functional. The garter toss. Why do we have to discuss in the 21st century why the garter toss isn't okay to do anymore at weddings? While it may be tradition, it just makes everyone uncomfortable. Bouquet toss. Bouquets alone cost about $100 or more on average, and if we were you, we would not want to throw $100 worth of beautiful flowers through the air, risking them getting damaged. Donut wall. Donut walls are no longer a new trend, and they need to go away. They were cool when you pinned them on Pinterest back in 2015, but now you just look like you are copying Pinterest pictures instead of actually doing something unique and different in your wedding. Matching bridesmaid dresses. This trend, for the most part, is dying out, which we are glad to see, but we don't think it should make a comeback anytime in the future. At least give your besties a choice in a couple of complementary colors and whatever cut they would like so they can feel confident standing in front of everyone. Doing a first look with everybody. A first look between a bride and groom before the ceremony starts can be a great way to calm nerves and have a private moment together before being very vulnerable in front of everyone that they know. However, if you want your first look with your new spouse to be when one of you is walking down the aisle, then just don't do a first look with anybody. Neon signs. Neon signs got really popular in 2019 in nearly all design formats. However, they have had their moment, and they are quickly passing. Personalized, and probably very expensive, lights just seem overdone and not special. A sweetheart's table. A sweetheart's table is just a really weird idea. While on Pinterest, they look so romantic and cozy, in real life, it just separates you from everyone else at the party. Sparkler exit. Sparkler exits look amazing for weddings that end at night. However, they are so dangerous. Whether it's the bride's dress or bouquet, a fellow guest, or the groom's tux, all of these have caught fire because of stray sparks from these sparklers. Personalized everything. While it might be fun to print personalized napkins, wedding favors, signs, and everything you could think of on your wedding day, don't. Personalized things are very expensive, are usually only good for one day only, and none of your guests will appreciate them as much as you probably do. Having a ton of bridesmaids. Having bridesmaids in your wedding can be so much fun. However, be careful about how many you choose since it could get really expensive and very overdone. As a rule of thumb, you really shouldn't have more than 5 people in your bridal party. Shape altars. Geometric, minimalist, floral altars have been really popular lately, but it's time for them to come to a close. We no longer need to see the altars shaped like a rhombus, triangle, circle, or a random parallelogram covered in flowers to have it be a pretty ceremony. Spending way too much money. Did you know that the average wedding nowadays costs $30,000? Choose what is most important for you to spend good money on, and go cheaper on the rest? Find more at allot.com.